Hi everyone, Neil here from Active Performance. Today we're going to be talking through calorie deficits. Quite simply, what a calorie deficit means is in regards to how many calories we're taking in and how many calories we're expending. So as you can see on this slide, we start to talk about things like basal metabolic rate. So our basal metabolic rate is the number of calories we need for the body to basically just to survive. So lying in bed all day, not doing anything is going to burn calories because we need our heart to beat, we need our organs to work, and that will all use calories to make those things function. Once we then start to exercise or even just move and do our day-to-day activities, we're then going to add additional calories on top of that. So we're going to be burning a certain amount of calories during the day. And to create that calorie deficit, we need to make sure that we're intaking fewer calories than we're expending to create that deficit. So here's an example of a 40-year-old female that weighs 70 kilos, 160 centimeters tall. Therefore, their basal metabolic rate would be nearly 1,400 calories. So they would need 1,400 calories just to sit in bed all day and survive. If they then were sedentary, so they were moving around, doing their day-to-day activities, they would then require 1,600 calories. And then if they were to then exercise 1 to 3 times per week, that would then increase their calories up to 1,850 calories per day. I like to use an analogy of a car to help explain this. So imagine that you are the car, the fuel is the food that we're intaking, and then when we're driving, that's the energy and the fuel that we're expending. So we're filling up our car every day with food and fuel. If we're not burning that fuel, we're then going to store it, hence the fuel cans on the roof, okay? If we don't put as much fuel in the car, we're then going to take those fuel cans from the roof to then refill up the car. So this is exactly what's happening in our body. So if we're eating too much food and not using that energy, we're going to be storing it as body fat, which is why our weight would increase. However, if we were to reduce the amount of food that we would take in, our body would then need to find that energy from elsewhere, which would be in our stores, and then we would use those stores for our energy throughout that day. So our calorie deficit will help us use our fuel stores, and we can do this of one of two ways. We can either reduce our intake of food to create that deficit, or we can increase our energy expenditure. So you may have heard of some of these diets listed above. So we've got low carb diet, high fat diets, Weight Watchers, other shake manufacturers out there as well, different types of fasting methods. But essentially all of these diets, they're all aiming to achieve a calorie deficit. We need to be in that calorie deficit for the body to lose weight. For example, if you were to eat 1,500 calories per day, which was just purely fast food and bad food, which obviously isn't good. However, we needed 2,000 calories a day to survive for our day-to-day activities. We would still be in a 500 calorie deficit. Therefore, we would still lose weight. However, it wouldn't be a healthy option. Our internal organs and our arteries and things like that would not appreciate that. However, we wouldn't be taking in enough energy that our body needs, and we'd have to get it from elsewhere, so from our stores. So these diet methods will work for some people and they might not work for others. And like I said, they do achieve or aim to achieve a calorie deficit. However, this can be done with just day-to-day eating habits and changing your eating habits, which is what we're going to cover over the next few weeks. So we need to have a look at our calorie intake over 1 week. As you can see from the example there might be days that we can stick to our calorie goal and we might be able to increase our activity and create a further deficit. However, there might be days where we know that we are going to go over that calorie consumption. There might be events that we're going to, or birthdays and things like that. And rather than restricting ourselves, then we might just come over on those calories. However, as you can see, over that whole week, we are still creating a sufficient deficit, which will then help with our weight loss, which if that's our goal. As you can see from the slide, a deficit of 500 calories per day or 3,500 calories per week will result in 1 pound of weight loss per week, which doesn't sound like much. However, if we were to take into account this whole program, which is 10 weeks, if I asked you now if you'd like to lose 10 pounds, if that was your goal, obviously 10 pounds does sound quite good. So again, don't think about it short term, try and think about it long term. And this deficit can be created by either reducing our food intake, like we've spoken about, to create that deficit, to create that 500 calories, or increasing our activity. And other little things to think about as well is if we do know that we're going to be going over our calories for that day, if we're going out for an evening meal or a birthday party, we could then possibly try and increase our activity levels that day, which would then result in a closer deficit than what we may have achieved if we hadn't. This slide just identifies a website, so calculators.net, and you can pop your information in there and it will give you a rough idea of what your basal metabolic rate is, so how many calories you need just to survive, and then also how many calories you would need just to be sedentary or to exercise. So you can start to get an idea of how many calories you're required day to day, and then you can create your deficit from there. Okay, so the take-home points from today, we want to start off with some simple adjustments. So can we start to increase our daily activity, which a lot of you guys are with these YouTube sessions that we're delivering, face-to-face sessions? Can we get out on extra walks, cycling, anything that's going to increase our activity levels? Can we start to decrease our consumption of bad foods? So you don't need a genius to tell you what a bad food is. Everybody knows what they probably should and shouldn't be eating. So if we can try and reduce some of those bad foods, that's going to help with our calorie intake and help provide a better calorie deficit. And then also little things like increasing our water intake. So can we start to take in more water? Sometimes we feel hungry, but we're actually thirsty. There's obviously plenty of other benefits of staying hydrated as well, especially as it starts to get hot. So over the next few weeks, we're going to start to look at how we can track our calorie intake, so you can start to monitor that, and also what types of foods we need in our body to make up that intake as well for optimal health.